My presentation is on the Colombian flower industry and the problems that it causes for Colombia and also the benefits. Picture this: Colombian women racing through fields of thorny roses, cutting them and being yelled at to go faster. They are working under 115-degree heat and are constantly bent over and using their hands to cut the flowers and trim the thorns. Their backs and bodies ache from constantly using them for repetitive actions. However, they're happy that they have a job and are being paid Colombia's minimum wage, which is approximately $250 a month. They are happy to bring home pay for their children and not have to sell their bodies for sex or drug trafficking to make a living. They are happy to do what they are doing, even though their male supervisors constantly abuse them. How many of you have bought or received flowers like roses or daisies? Do you know where they came from? Chances are those flowers you bought came from Colombia and were grown and cut by women like the ones I just described. I, like you, have bought and received many flowers in my lifetime and will continue to do so. I've done extensive research on the subject of the Colombian flower production, and I've come to the conclusion that the Colombian cut flower industry is an extremely corrupt operation that was outsourced from the United States to Colombia in order to ease cost and enhance efficiency of production. In my presentation, I'm going to talk about three things that I think are most important in learning about the industry. I'm going to talk about the history of the Colombian flower industry, followed by a brief background of the operation. Another topic that I will discuss is the damages on South America's environment caused by the flower industry, as well as the damage on South American people caused by inhumane practices of using pesticides without adequate protection. I'm first going to talk about the cut flower industry in order to explain why outsourcing was deemed a better alternative in the northern United States. Back in the 1950s, when flower production began, the northeastern United States was where cut flowers were most desired. Since flowers are highly perishable and products such as preservatives weren't available, it was impractical for flowers to be grown far from where they were used. When commercial air travel was established, the idea of outsourcing was questioned. It was possible for cheaper land to be bought for the production of flowers, and cheaper labor was available as well. Colombia was the perfect place to grow a wide variety of flowers. A graduate student named David Cheever wrote a term paper that suggested that the savanna near Colombia's capital made it an ideal place to grow flowers to sell them in the United States. He followed through with his research and started up a company in Colombia called Flora America with a couple of his college colleagues. At its peak, Flora America was exporting $16 million in cut flowers to the United States. Along with those $16 million came a whole lot of problems for Colombia. One of the major ones was the depletion of water and the question of when they would run out. Next, I'm going to focus on water depletion in Bogota. The flower industry in Colombia creates a major problem because it is responsible for the growing depletion of natural resources in South America. Producing a single rose bloom requires as much as 3 gallons of water. Those beautiful red roses that your boyfriend bought you last Valentine's Day cost Colombia 36 gallons of water. This is extremely hard on Colombia and costs the government a lot of money in preservation efforts. The aquifer in the town of Madrid, which is the capital of Colombia, has fallen from 20 meters to 200 meters, which means that water has to be imported from surrounding areas in order to be an adequate supply for its people. The depletion of water also contributes to making Bogota at risk for not having enough food to feed the population. Water depletion leads to land subsidence, which is a loss of support below the ground in the image, and results in soil collapse, compaction, and eventually the ground will sink and drop. The land subsidence is caused by removal of subsurface water. A lack of sufficient water will also cause a loss of vegetation and wildlife habitat due to the reduced volume of water in lakes, streams, and wetlands. Lastly, I'm going to discuss the chemicals used to preserve the flowers. Increasing research has shown that the chemicals produced to protect the flowers during growth from insects, and preserve the flowers for shipping are detrimental to the health of workers and the environment. A quarter of all the pesticides imported by Colombia from the United States are not registered for use in our country of origin. This is because that flower companies can get away with using chemicals that aren't fit to be used in flowers that are in food that's meant for consumption, because flowers aren't meant for consumption and therefore are not ingested. However, this is so far from the truth, because chemicals have to be sprayed on the blooms by the workers and are therefore ingested by the workers, creating a plethora of health problems for the people of Colombia. The workers that spray the flowers aren't given adequate protection from the chemicals or breathing them in and digesting them. The World Health Organization knows this and is working to eliminate toxic and carcinogenic sprays from being used. Pesticides pose a huge health risk to those who directly handle them. Growing flowers in Colombia exposes workers to as many as 127 different chemicals, mostly fungicides and pesticides. A plethora of problems have arisen due to the overexposure of workers to chemicals, including headaches, nausea, impaired vision, conjunctivitis, rashes, asthma, stillbirths, miscarriages, congenital malformations, and neurological problems. 2/3 of the workforce exhibits at least one of these health problems. And although the Colombian flower industry causes a lot of problems, it is beneficial to the United States and the Colombian economy. A World Bank researcher named John Mendez said that the Colombian cut flower industry is one of the major development success stories in the last 2 decades. It is clear to see that the Colombian cut flower industry is a corrupt operation that was outsourced from the United States to Colombia in order to ease costs and enhance efficiency of production. History of the operation shows that the lack of a stable workforce as well as an abundant supply of arable farmland in Colombia made it a desirable place to outsource flower production. The amount of water that is necessary to grow flowers creates a growing problem of depletion of the natural resource. Pesticide and fungicide use with inadequate protection causes many problems for workers. This holiday season, think about the flowers that you see around the town and in your home. You may be asking yourself why we continue to support this industry and buy into Colombian flowers, but I challenge you to ask yourself the question, if you don't buy the flowers, what's going to happen to all of these women?